Let's do the last one here. Volume of a triangular prism and total surface area of a triangular prism. Triangular prism has as its base a triangle. And there's two heights involved, so you've got to be quite careful. There's one, the height of a triangle is this perpendicular height. It must have a perpendicular sign, be the perpendicular height. So you've got a base, and I always call this the little height, and this the big height. So area of a triangle is a half base times height, and then we're going to multiply that by what gives the prism its big height. And for total surface area, perimeter of its base, in a triangle, the perimeter of its base can be found by adding up the three sides. So we'd add this side, and this side. Those three sides there, I colored in nicely. It's going to be the perimeter of its base. Multiply that by the height, plus 2 area of its base. Area of its base is half base times height. And here's what happens. 2 times a half is going to cancel each other out. So we can, essentially, whatever works for you, you can write it as 2 multiplied by a half base times height, or you can just write add base times height. So let's look at that. Here's a triangular prism. Remember I spoke to you about this being the base, and this perpendicular line here being its height. And this then would be the big height. So working with volume, area of its base is half base times height. We multiply that by its big height. Plug in what we have. Its base is 24. We multiply that by its height, 35. And we multiply that by its big height of 29. Grab your calculator at this point. You work that out. You should get 12,180. Remember your units, in this case, meters cubed. For total surface area, we want to have perimeter of its base, so we're going to add up all the sides. We multiply that by the height. And for this example, I'm going to use what we've always been saying, 2 areas of its base, 2 multiplied by a half its base times its height. But remember, this is pretty redundant because 2 times a half is going to cancel each other out. So the sum of its sides is going to be 24 plus 37 plus 37. See what I did there? Walked around the edge. That plus that plus that. Walk around the edge, you get perimeter of its base. Multiplied by its height of 29. And we're going to add our 24 times 35. Bod maths again, very, very important. You've got to work out the brackets before we do the multiplying. So we work out 24 plus 37 gives me 98. And I'm going to multiply that by its height of 29. And if I work out this part, I get 840. 98 times 29 gives me 2,842. Add that to 840. And I get 3,682 meters, and it's squared because it's total surface area. Here's an interesting one I want to use. Because working this out, let's do the volume first, because that's pretty straightforward. This should be a right angle showing me this is the base, this is the height, this is what gives it its big height. So volume is going to be area of its base, a half base, times height, multiplied by its big height. Plug in what we have, it's 3 times 4, and its big height is going to be 2. Work that out together. Once we've worked it out, you should get that's 12. And interesting here, they haven't given meters, centimeters, feet, or anything like that. So I'm just going to show that I know what I'm doing by writing whatever the units would be cubed, units cubed. For its total surface area, we said its perimeter of its base, which is side plus side plus side, multiplied by its height, and then 2 times a half, which cancel out. So I'm just going to write base times height. Now when I want to add up the sides here, if I look at this, I'm going to draw it on here. There's side, which is 3. There's a side, which is 4. But I don't have this side over here. I'm going to call it x. I don't have x. But in a right angled triangle, that would be called the hypotenuse. So the square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides. So we're going to use a bit of Pythag here and go, well, it's x squared is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. Don't forget to give a reason. Pythagoras is how we know that. 3 squared is 9 and 4 squared is 16, and 9 and 16 is 25. We square root that to get this side over here is 5. So now I can come back to what I was working on once I've done my Pythagoras and say, well, the sum of the sides is 3 plus 4 plus 5 multiplied by the height of 2, and our base we said was 3 and our height was 4. Remember, that's the base, that's the height. Bod maths again, I've got to work out what's in the brackets. 3, 4 and 5 gives me 12 multiplied by 2, and 3 and 4 gives me another 12. And 12 and multiplied by 2 gives me 24. And 24 plus 12 gives me 36. Again, I don't know what the units are, so I'm just going to write units. And because it's total surface area, units squared. Right, so just remember, if you don't have one of the sides, it will be a right angled triangle, and you can use Pythagoras to find the missing side like we did here, to plug it into the sum of sides. Go and practice some more.